Hi everyone, I'm Gabor. Welcome to my workshop. Today, I've brought you an interesting electronics project. This video touches on so many different areas that I'm not even sure what title I'll give it, but let me tell you what it's about. Hopefully, the end result will be a small 3D printed box with an LCD display containing an ESP32, and all sorts of interesting things will appear on the LCD screen. I thought it would be worth getting to know. With the concept of an API key. And don't think of anything too fancy here. For example, if you see a website with a little Google Maps section, most of the time that small program gets the map from Google's server using an API key. Let me give you another detailed example of why an API key is so useful. Let's say someone wants to build a little personal weather station at home that shows the current temperature at their specific location, the wind speed, and a whole bunch of other things. But they don't have any external sensors installed. However, they do have a display and a small ESP32 microcontroller unit. This little unit can ask remote servers what data is expected in that local area, like the current temperature, for example. It can get the data and display it on the screen. And you don't need external sensors. You can simply get the information from servers. So this API key is basically a username and password in one, a pretty long string of characters. And generally, it's not a good idea to share your own API key with others. For example, I have a YouTube channel, which is run by Google. Google servers store all kinds of data: how many subscribers I have, how many people watched my channel in a month, and so on. If I have the API key, which I can request from Google, then I can query this data. And if someone else gets hold of such an API key that works, they could even misuse it. That's why you should never share it with anyone. For example, a lot of invoicing programs and web shops communicate with each other through API keys. And if someone gains access to one of these, who knows what kind of invoices they could generate? Out of the examples I mentioned, let's maybe take a look at the weather station, and I'll show you how you can display, for example, the number of subscribers on a YouTube channel. And honestly, these days you don't need to be a programmer or have deep electronics knowledge to do any of this, because there's Grok, there's ChatGPT, or Gemini. They can basically show you everything. You just need to know how to ask. Although there's a lot of stuff on my desk, we'll only need a few specific things for this video. For example, we need a small specialized panel exactly like this one, which has these holes, and here's a much bigger panel. These holes are for inserting the wires. This is what one of these wires looks like, for example. There's a pin on each end, and with this, you can create electrical connections. We'll also need a display, so I'll pick one for this as well. And this is what an ESP32 looks like. Basically, with just these, you can already build a little gadget like the one I mentioned. It provides a weather function for the user. Okay, so I also need to add the wire here, and that's pretty much all you need. Of course, you'll also need an internet connection and a USB cable. I usually buy these kinds of things on AliExpress.com. I know it's a Chinese store, and a lot of people are against it, and they flood half the world with packages, and there are calls for tariffs and all that. But you can buy a lot of useful stuff there. This is really something special. There's a welding machine, specifically one that's capable of TIG welding. For this type of welding, a tungsten electrode is used. You somehow have to ignite the arc. This is a high-frequency generator. It produces a high-frequency signal here at high voltage, and this helps to ignite the arc. So, for example, you don't have to tap or do all sorts of things with the electrode. Just bring it close to the object, ignite the arc, and you can weld smoothly with it. I used to really like these types of displays as well. If you look at, say, a coffee machine, you'll see that many vending machines and drink dispensers use something like this. You mostly see these kinds of displays in hotels. They're pretty old-fashioned, but they usually work quite well. Nowadays, these types of displays are kind of outdated. Let's get to the point. Grok is an AI interface for us where we can get answers to all sorts of questions. I typed in that I want to make a weather station. I have a display, I entered its type, which by the way is written on the back of the display. I have an ESP32, So I asked for some source or advice on how I can do this for free. Here's the main display. This is the ESP32 microcontroller. By the way, you can buy the ESP32 in this tiny size as well, which is known as a super mini board. This one is perfectly fine to use too, by the way. Now I just need the breadboard and a few jumper wires. My question is still on the display here, and below is the answer, which actually turned out to be quite long, but it's easy to understand. Let's look at the main parts. So we're thinking in terms of APIs, meaning we want to extract, for example, temperature data from a database for the area we're currently in. For this, we need a provider. And for example, we can choose the Open Weather Map service. And here is also the answer to how to connect the ESP32 and the display. And basically, here's the code. You can just copy this code. Based on the description given by Grok, I'll insert this little panel here, the display somewhere here, and with the help of the cables, I'll simply connect these points with this and plug in a USB cable here. Simple as pie. The wiring was done in no time. This is how it looks. Let's take a look at the database. We're currently on the vadermap.org website. Here they talk about the unique API access key, which is basically a credential that lets us securely access and retrieve information from the database. They confirm that we can query the database 1,000 times every day for free. I basically clicked this link and registered myself, so I have a personal username now. I chose the name Yeti, and I won't click on this button right now because my private API key would show up publicly right away, and I previously said I wouldn't show it, because it could be misused. For example, if someone uses my API key to query the database too many times, I could simply get blocked for the day. I 3D printed two cases, which are assembled from separate parts. There is a removable front panel and a protective cover, which you can somehow slide out quite easily. There's another case as well, also featuring a front panel and a cover, and you can securely put the ESP32 into either one of them. I printed these components with a multicolor printer, which means the PLA filaments are stored on separate spools. There are 4 individual spools on it, and from then on, the machine always feeds in the specific color that it is currently printing with. This is the ST7735 model display, and right here is its nearly identical twin. So this one also has an ESP32 chip inside its twin, but it features this distinctively elongated and narrow display, and its model type is the ST7789. I originally intended this elongated one for somewhere around here, and I think I can successfully build this display in here, so I will eventually have 2 functional gadgets working together. We need to determine exactly how to upload the code provided by Grok onto the ESP32. For this, I'll need some specific software. It's a completely free and open source software program, and you can see the website right here. I've already installed and set it up, and I've also carefully copied and pasted the entire code block into the editor here. Setting it up just means I had to specifically identify and select what kind of unit I have. First, you will need to install a software library here in this section, depending entirely on what kind of display hardware you have. And after adjusting a couple of basic configuration settings, the whole thing is basically ready to go. And you can easily upload the code into this device using a standard USB cable. And this is the final result. There you have the real-time weather data. It is currently minus 2.4 degrees Celsius. There is a little bit of wind, and this is the only specific part I changed in the source code, as you can clearly see. It's not XXX for the Wi-Fi password and so on, but I've covered up this part now. These are all my personal details. This is the GPS coordinate of my home. This is the specific API key provided by the Open Weather Map site. And this here is what gives full access to my Wi-Fi router. I didn't touch anything else, and it actually worked on the very first try. There the data. Well, I wouldn't say it's completely finished yet, but it is getting there. It actually arranged everything quite well. But since there is a little bit of extra space right here, I will go ahead and put in my specific YouTube channel details, which I only just started about 2 weeks ago. Anyone who has a standard Google account can easily enable this particular API function with just a few simple clicks. And in the end, you will get your very own unique API key, which looks exactly like this. Well, something very much like this, as this is obviously just a placeholder example. So I tried to phrase the request in a very straightforward and simple manner. I press a button, and basically it already automatically configures and sets up everything that's needed. Then you have to paste this into that small specialized software program I showed you earlier. It's really not super complicated to set up at all. I think most people who have a bit of IT experience and some basic electronics knowledge can get it working in roughly half a day. I took the provided code, put it into the Arduino sketch, and programmed the ESP32 with it. It looks like it turned out almost perfectly. Here's the ESP32 display, and in yellow you can see the number of subscribers and the number of viewers. I started an English language channel 2 weeks ago, and that's what it's showing now. And to make the display look nice, here you can see, for example, the resolution of the display, and it's enough if it just shows the number of YouTube subscribers here for now. Of course, it will use the API key here. I press this, and we're still waiting for the code. Displays have what's called an interface, and through the interface, they get power, data communication happens, and for example, you can also turn on the backlight. Take a close look at exactly how many pins an SPI interface uses. And as you can clearly see, this particular one only has 4 pins in total. The display screen is significantly smaller, but that doesn't really matter much right now. So the main point is that you can drive a display with just 4 pins. This little display also has an I4C interface. Well, in English, that's actually pronounced I squared C. I'll write it here on the screen for you. And if you look closely at the phonetic spelling, it actually comes out quite differently than you might expect. By the way, since we're on the topic, the I4C in the I squared C communication protocol, the I is actually an abbreviation for enter. The squared part refers to enter to integrated, so it is fundamentally about the exchange of data between different electronic circuits. The C stands for circuit, as in integrated circuit. So that is exactly how the technical term I squared C originally came about. Meanwhile, I have successfully finished programming the other secondary ESP32. This long, narrow display works really well. Grog came up with this design for it. The numbers appear in blue at the top and red at the bottom. But what's special about it, if I press reset, after restarting, it boots up like this. So it checks the Wi-Fi, then the counter spins up and stops at the value where my English language YouTube channel currently stands. So it's become this little stylish element. Pretty cool. You can see 3 kinds of screens here on the table. This is what's called a TN display. This one is IPS, and this one is OLED. With OLED, each pixel can light up on its own. There are tiny LEDs there, and that's the light source. But with these other two, they use backlighting. And with the addition of backlighting technology, it's the crystal structure that creates the image and the light force. These two displays are already fully operational and functioning correctly, but I like to get this one completely powered up and running smoothly as well. So I told Grok to ensure that the entire system is fully compatible with the SSD 1306 display too, and to show the YouTube subscribers and current weather data. I'll hit enter now, and I think it'll generate the necessary code in just a moment. And even though this is an incredibly small and compact display, I truly hope the requested data will successfully fit within its limited dimensions. It looks like everything I asked for is showing up clearly on the little screen, and I carefully switched off the desk lamp in the meantime. Once the camera finally focuses, I'll be able to show you exactly what's on the display. Now here you can probably see what's on the screen. The other display can show this in a significantly more massive and expansive way, but honestly, even on this little one, and even on the small palm-sized device, you can see everything clearly. About a year ago, I made a video where ChatGPT wrote the code, and back then, you still had to manually adjust and refine the code by hand sometimes to make sure everything worked, and you had to explain exactly what should and shouldn't be done. Now, Grok wrote the code, but I also tried ChatGPT, and it was absolutely flawless and perfect. So they can definitely handle these kinds of straightforward tasks, and Gemini works really well too. This entire field has undergone significant advancements and improvements recently. I think some people first really need to understand that modern artificial intelligence isn't a threat or an enemy, but rather a super useful and powerful tool. and it's incredibly important to know exactly how to use these tools effectively. Those who can master using it can drastically reduce the amount of time they spend on tasks and even save quite a bit of money. The most important thing is being able to describe what you want. If you can put it into words, then AI can help. But don't forget, AI can't solve everything, at least not here on my desk, because I'm the one who has to put this unit into the house. I'm the one who's going to connect the two devices with a soldering iron. So I'll take out the jumper cables, wire everything up nicely, put it in the box, screw it in, glue it together. This is what the two units look like. Right now, they're running off a power bank. The red USB cable is supplying 5 volts to the ESP32s. This is how one of them turned out. Unfortunately, the display shifted a bit here, so I still need to fix that, but everything is clearly visible. I decided to glue the display in place instead of using screws. And here are the current weather data. If the camera focuses properly, you might be able to see that it's zero point 0.9 degrees outside. The humidity is currently at 68%. There are very few clouds in the sky, only 6% coverage, and there's just a little bit of wind. To create simple units like this, you do indeed need some fundamental electronics knowledge and skills, but you don't have to be a professional computer programmer. In the introduction, I said I would ask the specific EIS questions and act based on the answers. And believe it or not, the answers provided were 100% correct. When I asked how to wire things up, everything worked perfectly the very first time. And when I typed in that I wanted a weather station and provided some basic data, the answers came step by step, telling me exactly what I needed. And I just followed them. What's really mind blowing in today's world is that often you don't even have to type. You can just speak into your phone's microphone and the AI acts based on that. It's absolutely and extraordinarily incredible. Of course, I think whoever set up the audio configuration and setup part could have given it a bit more thought. The audio of this Grok artificial intelligence kind of sounds like someone who's completely lost their mental stability. I'm so glad you came. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, I would really appreciate it if you please do and click the bell icon so you get all future notifications. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate you taking the time to view this video. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue creating content for this community. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider liking and subscribing so you never miss an update. We have many more exciting projects in the works that we cannot wait to share with you very soon. Thank you once again for your loyalty and for being part of our journey. We hope you found this helpful. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you in the next video.